Hello, I am Kate, and today you are listening to Kate's podcast. On air, we have the lovely Prudence Emery from Victoria, BC, joining us today. She's the best-selling author of Nanaimo Girl, which we are going to talk about today. So, without further ado, let's get started. The reason you're hearing this song, to those new listeners to our podcast, is because each week we dedicate the theme song of our show to the guest in order to get a better sense and feel of all our guests. In this case, we've got the Beatles playing Dear Prudence. I'm going to have Miss Prudence Emery describe the meaning of this song. But first, a very warm welcome to Miss Emery. Why, hello, what a pleasure it is to be here. Thanks for coming. So for all our viewers dying to know, what is the meaning behind this special song for you, Prudence? The meaning behind the song is actually quite funny. So before the song came out, people referred to me as Miss Emery, but since its release, my first name definitely got some extra cachet. Now, the song's origin actually comes from an unusual place, which I found out about through Mia Farrow, a fellow actress at a concert conducted by her husband, Andre Previn, at the Royal Festival Hall. When she heard my name, she told me that her sister's name also happened to be Prudence, and when her sister was studying under the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi in India, she would not come out of her room. The Beatles were to be gathered outside her door and sang, "Dear Prudence, won't you come out to play?" And that was how the song was born. The rest is history. Excellent story, Miss Emery. Tell me what your new book, Nanaimo Girl, is all about. To start off with, this book is a memoir of pretty much all the life events I could have possibly thought of. It will inspire young and old, as there are stories here about adventure, life, and love, so it really is appealing to all audiences. Anyone can take something away from Nanaimo Girl after reading it. Sounds great. I read the book as well, of course. It really truly is inspiring. All the details and memories with the quotes integrated make it such a moving read. It's not one of those typical sad sob stories, but rather a fun read packed with interesting facts not only about your life story, but also about our country and other countries you've traveled to. Nanaimo Girl is not only informative, but inspiring, moving, and entertaining all in one. Thank you. That truly means a lot to me. I would definitely recommend each and every one of you listening to go out and pick up Nanaimo Girl after the interview, if you haven't already done so. Yes, get the book. I know you mentioned meeting a bunch of different celebrities. How did those encounters go? Some were great, others were, well, a bit off to say the least. Overall, it was a great opportunity meeting all of them, and if I haven't, who knows where my life would have been now. The earliest I started meeting celebrities happened to be at the Expo 67 in Montreal. One of the first jobs I was given, actually, by my good friend Christine Griffin, whom I dedicated the book to, along with her husband Scott. The funny thing is, Christine used to work as a fashion director for the now defunct Eaton's Canada, which I actually go into detail about in the book. But anyways, the expo went great, although there were a lot of interesting personalities and characters. It definitely opened up my way to my job at the Savoy Group, which I didn't know if I would have been able to handle had I not worked at the expo the year before. Wow, that sounds like quite the life there. It sure was. Who were some of your favorite celebrities to work with? Some of my favorites were working with Nicolas Cage, Jennifer Aniston, Robin Williams, and the first actress I'd ever worked with, Sophia Loren. Sophia is one of the most down-to-earth actors one could ever hope to meet, as I mentioned in the book. I remember her sending her son Carlos' jacket to another fellow actress she was working with, just because her fellow coworker was cold. Another good encounter I had was with Jennifer Aniston while working on set of Love Happens in Vancouver in 2008. She was so sweet, she threw a party for the cast and crew at a restaurant in Stanley Park, which included dinner, drinks, and dancing. I got autographs from both Nicolas Cage and Robin Williams. In fact, one of the fondest memories I had was when I was on set of The Boy in Blue, with then young Nicolas Cage, whom I took on a tour of Montreal as the assistant director. I was instructed to supervise him, so that I did. We both went to the famous hangout Schwartz Deli, that was famous for its smoked meat sandwiches. Who would have knew that I would have seen him again nearly 10 years later in 1994 when he was starring in the comedy Trapped in Paradise? I guess he was pleased to see me again as he signed me an autograph which read, "Dear Prudence, open your eyes. Can't you see I adore you?" I was in awe, of course. Then something similar happened a few years later when I met Robin Williams in 1997. He had signed a photograph of himself and Matt Damon when they were working on Good Will Hunting, which had read, "Prudence, thanks for the good word. Robin Williams." That must have felt like somewhat of a feat there, hadn't it? It certainly did, that's for sure. I bet. Now, another question I know our listeners would be dying to know is, have you ever bumped into a celebrity you didn't like or just overall had a tough time with? Yes, I have indeed. As with many people, we all have our good and bad days. Maybe these were just bad days for these actors and actresses I had met throughout my 30 years in film, but I'm going to share some accounts with you anyways. Please do. The first one I remember, and these are not in order of occurrence by the way, is the one I had with Jennifer Lopez. Oh wow, I must not be the only person to have heard some things about Jennifer Lopez. One of my mom's coworkers was once helping her and she told me she wasn't exactly the easiest to deal with. That's true. From my experience at least. You know how some people look through you like you don't exist? Well, Jennifer Lopez was one of those people for me, unfortunately. Another not so good encounter I've had was with Rebecca De Mornay. She came across as rather cold when I first saw her in the production office. She just kind of turned her icy blue eyes on me once she spotted me, and I felt rather uncomfortable. I've also been called a parasite before by actress Ashley Judd while on set of Simon Birch. You've really gone through your fair share. Yes, I have, but it's all part of life, and living and growing. That is true, and a great message to our audience for sure. Yes, indeed. Now we've covered some of your memorable celebrity encounters throughout your career in public relations, film, and Expo 67. What are some of the most notable memories you can think of to this day? Well, I have a pretty large collection. Would you like to hear some of the stranger ones or the more fun ones? Let's start with the fun ones. Well, I've been fortunate enough to hug a gorilla during my time working at the Toronto Zoo, as well as a 6-month-old baby panda back in China while filming the Amazing Panda Adventure there in 1994. Another amazing memory I have mentioned in the book, worth mentioning, is the visit I was able to encounter of the Dalai Lama. In fact, not only was I able to meet him, but I also shook his hand. That sounds like such a phenomenal experience. How were you able to meet the Dalai Lama? Well, I was invited to a fundraiser thanks to the Webster family. I was at another fundraising ball prior when I met the Websters, where Madeline Webster, a socialite from Toronto and the wife of Ben Webster, offered me to help promote her then new line of Helix fragrances. If you want to learn more about this, you've got to read the book. But anyways, now on to how I met the Dalai Lama. The Websters then invited me to their home for this fundraising event where I shook hands with him. That sounds amazing. Yes, it truly was an amazing experience. Now, for the more stranger experiences, can you recount some of those for us? For sure. So I remember when working for the Savoy Hotel in London, I had an odd task to endure one day. I was to help one of the higher class gentlemen staying in one of our suites at the time to find this specific shaving powder you can only get in Canada. So I had to call up a few shops until I finally got the right one and made my way over there to bring the gentleman some magic shaving powder, as you call it. Wow, that surely sounds like quite an interesting story. Indeed it was. The look of joy on the gentleman's face was all worth it, in the end though. Now, Prudence, I know we've skimmed through just some of the people and some of the highs and lows in your life that we encounter throughout the book. Now I would like our audience to know, what's the message behind the book? Is there a certain meaning one should take away when reading Nanaimo Girl, or multiple messages perhaps? There are more than a few. You'll have to read the whole book to know all of them, but the goal of my book is for whoever is reading it to hopefully discover themselves. I've taken up a lot of different jobs in my life, not having a definitive path. But what I've also found is that good friends can help connect those dots in life to create a more clear path. And what do you suggest for readers who have fear towards what their future might hold? I suggest that fear is a good thing. Not always, but it can be. In my case, this was true, and I even mention in the book that fear can be a good thing. When you're conquering something, it can be intimidating, especially a new job, change of career, new school, anything. The hardest part is to start, since you don't know what you're getting into, possibly. But each step you take towards conquering something, you figure something out along the way, and once you figure something out, it can be fun. If there was a lesson each Canadian listening to this podcast today can take away from this book, what would it be? I would say it's a quote my dad once told me before he passed away, and that is keep your friends. They've all you got. Sometimes friends truly are all we've got. Wow, thank you, Prudence. That was a very simple, yet straightforward and very valuable message for sure. I want to thank our audience today as well as for staying tuned. Prudence Emery's book, Nanaimo Girl, is available online on all major retail platforms as well as in stores at select retailers. Please stay tuned for our next show when we'll have Claire Hughes in studio to talk about our latest memoir, Open Heart, Open Mind. As Prudence mentions in her novel, that is a wrap for now. Thanks again for listening. See you next week.